Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Rust Belt Collector here, and today we are taking a look at some more toy box action figures from Disney or shopdisney.com. And today we have kind of a surprise because no one really knew that these were coming out. These were basically dropped right on May the 4th. No one really saw them, they weren't advertised. I found out about them due to someone who I've really never talked about on this channel, really doesn't come up a lot. Quite honestly, I don't think any of you have really ever heard of him, but a small YouTuber named JCC2224 brought them up and shared them on Instagram, and I was able to purchase these. So of course, shout out to him for that. I think he may have gotten sent the link from someone else, so I don't know how far back the chain goes in terms of who to properly thank for posting these, but regardless, we have them in hand. Everyone was sharing the post around, so hopefully everyone that maybe wanted these has them now as well. So as far as I know, these are technically the third and fourth clone troopers released in the toy box line, as long as you count Wrecker. I did not buy Wrecker, but they released a Captain Rex previously to this, and they released Wrecker, who I would count as a clone trooper. And so this 501st clone trooper and this shock trooper would be the third and fourth, I guess, of that lineup. Now the toy box line is kind of a curiosity because it appears to only be made by Disney. It doesn't seem like Hasbro is involved with the production of these. At least they're not branded on the action figures, and it's not advertised anywhere on Hasbro's site that they do in fact make these. So that is quite interesting when you consider the fact that Hasbro has had the exclusive rights to Star Wars action figures for really the last like 20 odd years, and it's actually 40 odd years if you count the length of time that Kenner also had those exclusive rights. So yeah, these are just kind of curiosities. I'm guessing it's just because Disney owns the Star Wars property that they are able to really get away with whatever they want in making these, and that's okay. It's always good to have more Star Wars figures out on the market, even if they are maybe geared towards a younger audience as these are. But all in all, they're more Clone Trooper action figures, and of course we love to see it here. So yeah, it seems like Disney wanted to pursue this line a little bit more. I'm guessing it performs rather well because it is sold both at the parks and online, so you have a really wide range of people seeing this line and being able to purchase it. And it's great to see that this line is including prequel characters like Clone Troopers, because I think originally it kind of focused more on original trilogy and sequel trilogy, so definitely good to see some Clone Troopers represented there. And these being Clone Troopers that I guess technically could fall in either the Clone Wars or the Revenge of the Sith category, so kind of goes both ways with that. Now, there's really no reason to talk about the packaging all that much. I mean, obviously it is kind of beat up because I just ripped the bubble off. I had no intention of keeping this packaging. It's very straightforward, very simple. The only thing that might be of interest is just here on the back. You can see this is the 2-pack here, but you can also get this really cool 4-pack with all these classic droids. There's a lot of different figures in this line, so I think there's probably something for everyone, whether you're a prequels fan, an original trilogy fan, or a sequel trilogy fan. Now, if you saw my review of the Captain Rex and Ahsoka 2-pack, there's really not going to be anything terribly new here to see with these figures, apart from the paint apps and the weapons. Everything is pretty much a straight reuse of Captain Rex, the only difference being the helmets, it looks like. So yeah, let's start things off with the 501st Clone Trooper. We'll go over articulation on just one of these figures. We won't need to go over on the Shock Trooper because they are the same. And then, yeah, we'll get into some of the things that I like about this line, some of the things I maybe don't like, and we'll compare them to some other figures just to see how they stack up. So starting at the head, we have a swivel all the way around here, and that will hinge forward and back, so really good range of motion there. Kind of surprising for such a, I guess, childish toy to have that range of articulation. At the shoulders, all the way around and up to just past 90, it has a similar shoulder pad design to the new Black Series mold, so that is a softer plastic and it goes over top of the torso. Single jointed elbow that swivels all the way around and can crunch into just under 90. Let me make sure I have that right. Yep, that goes just into about 90 there. And then hinge and swivel wrist all the way around and in and out on this wrist and this wrist as well, unfortunately. It was definitely apparent on Captain Rex that they needed up and down wrist joints here because he dual wields the blaster pistols. These guys just carry rifles. However, they still would benefit from at least one up and down wrist, primarily on this right hand where they'd be gripping the rifle. And because they are reuse of Captain Rex, you're also going to get 2 pointer fingers or trigger fingers, and that's kind of a downside as well. It would have been nice to see an alternate hand there. At the torso, there is a swivel. You can swivel that all the way around just like that. Then there is a ball joint for the hips, allowing you to pivot it forward to there, pivot it back to there, and then you can swivel them out to there for a full split. Moving on down to the knee, you have a single joint, so you can swivel that all the way around, and you can hinge it almost to 90 there. Then finally down to the foot, you have a hinge that gets you forward to there, point to there, and it is a forward-facing rocker, so you actually do get some pretty advanced movement from the foot. So overall for this figure, there's some really good articulation, especially for it being geared more towards a younger audience. The articulation pretty much matches up with what you might come to expect with a vintage collection figure or maybe a Black Series figure, with a few points of articulation maybe being a little bit less active, a little bit less range in some of them. But overall, it's really impressive what they can do with this line. For the 501st Trooper, we get this DC-15 carbine. It's molded in a complete piece of plastic. There's not even a cutout for the trigger there. Same thing under here, there is molding detail, but it's not cut out or anything like that. Just a solid piece, and that is totally fine for what it is. The sculpt work there is still really nice. You can see all the little details etched in there. It's definitely more realistic than it needs to be, especially for, again, being a younger audience toy, but that is a-okay with me. The one downside that I do see with this weapon is more so, again, coming back to this hand. It's really a struggle to get this hand gripping around the stock here. And personally, I found it easier just to do the pose that I was doing at the start of this video with the figure, where he's just motioning like this, because then he doesn't have to hold it with 2 hands. It just is really, really difficult with particularly the carbine and this hand. It would have been nice if they could have remolded that just to allow gripping a little bit more easily. But if you want to, and you don't really want to flex that hand out, you can always pose it like this. It's close enough, you know? Now as for this figure overall, I'd say it's a pretty good representation of a 501st Clone Trooper. It's definitely not perfect, and we'll get into that, but overall, they match the blue pretty closely, and it works well with this line being sort of a animated Clone Wars-esque style of design. It's not quite realistic, it's not quite Clone Wars animated style. It's kind of a mishmash of a lot of different things. Though I will say, given the pouch placement, the angle of the abdomen here, and the detailing here on the back of the head, it's definitely more heavily geared towards the Clone Wars animation style than it is towards realistic. That being said, I think my main gripe here, apart from that hand, is the paint applications that are going on here. Overall, they're pretty good, they're pretty crisp, there's no smudged lines, there's no overspray or anything like that on this figure in particular, but there's some weird missing paint apps and some goofy paint apps. So starting up here at the helmet, that little chin piece right there is just left white. It should be painted black, and it's just kind of left off for some reason, even though we have like the nozzles on the left and right there painted a nice shiny silver, which looks really cool, by the way. Like, I'm impressed that they went that far and still left that little chin area off. Then we go down to the torso, and you can see here there's no eye for his torso markings. The 501st is notorious for having the stripe and then the dot at the top, kind of like the letter I, and he's missing that here. I can see that there isn't much space there for that whole marking just because of the sculpt that they're working with, but maybe they could have just moved it up here onto the upper torso. They are working with some pretty limited space there just because the sculpt wasn't designed around doing maybe more than just Captain Rex, but still, it's kind of a bummer that they just left that off entirely. Then down to the knees, it's kind of an interesting choice with just these applications here. They kind of went with like a V shape, and that should flatten off at the bottom of the knee if my memory serves me right with the markings for the 501st. So it's kind of weird. Maybe they were going for more of a realistic style, but even that has a flat bottom to it because of the little jutting out portion of the knee pad. So either way, kind of weird that they went with the V shape instead of the more correct shape, but they do have the leg pinstriping, they have the arm pinstriping there around the wrist, And they even went so far as to paint the back, which is really kind of overlooked in a lot of representations of the 501st, so that is nice. So yeah, overall, the 501st Trooper may not be perfect. Again, that hand is probably the biggest gripe that I have. I could forgive a lot of the paint app issues if that hand just gripped the blaster a little bit better. But overall, that is a really solid little toy box figure, and I really do like it. We'll see it next to Captain Rex here shortly and see just how well that actually stacks up. Next up, we have the Shock Trooper, and like I said, he is all the same as the 501st Trooper, so we won't go over any of the articulation on this figure. It is all the same. However, he does include a new blaster. He has the DC-15 long rifle. It looks really cool here. The sculpt work, again, is really nice. The detail is all there. And he is actually able to flex his hand open and hold onto that little grip right there. So that is really nice. He's able to hold his blaster. He can shoulder it and even look down the line of sights almost. So this is pretty functional for what is, again, that younger age demographic that they're shooting for. It works really well as a functional animated action figure, and just, again, the posability on these figures is really, really impressive. Now, I will say with this figure, it does not have quite as clean of paint apps here on the helmet. You can kind of see there's some bleed through or some overspray around the visor, as well as here on the frown. This is a little bit misaligned here in the cheek, but overall, nothing too crazy, nothing too, I don't know, nothing that's a deal breaker, I suppose. And something that I forgot to mention with the 501st Trooper is that the brow line and the visor do bleed together, or they're just like printed together on the helmet. That might be something that people are bothered by. It doesn't really faze me. It's just kind of a stylistic thing, I guess, something probably to save on production costs. But overall, it looks fine. It represents the character pretty well. So yeah, overall, this is a really clean figure. The paint apps are really good everywhere else. The pinstripes wrap all the way around the arm and don't misalign where they would meet up, you know, in the printing process. The legs are cast in red or maybe painted red. I'm not totally sure. The only thing that really stands out with this figure that's wrong is his leg markings. For whatever reason, instead of having the line go all the way up to the top of the thigh and then having these stripes come across horizontally, they have them going up at like a 45-degree angle and not going all the way up to the top of the thigh. It's very curious why they made that decision. It's kind of like the knees on the 501st. I don't fully understand why they did that. For any of you Lord of the Rings nerds out there, I feel like this kind of looks like Gandalf's rune. I don't know why, but they just have the rune on his leg. You can see that right here if you're interested in knowing what Gandalf's rune looks like. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a forgivable oversight or mix-up or error or whatever it might be. Again, it's a toy box toy. It's not meant to be the most detailed. It's not meant to be a Hot Toys. It's not even meant to be a Black Series figure. It's just meant to be a cool clone trooper in an animated style, and I think that both of these do that very, very well. I will say though, for the price point, these might be a little bit steep for anyone other than maybe the most avid clone trooper collector. I think that these were like $25. So between the two of them, you're paying like $12 a piece. That's a little bit steep. I could be more comfortable in the $10 a piece range, but yeah, that is the retail price for these online, plus you got to tack on shipping on top of that, so these might not be the best thing for everyone. Maybe if you're at the parks and you see them, that might be the better way to pick these up, but again, if you're an avid clone collector, you kind of got to have them, right? So then for comparison, let's bring in the Toy Box Captain Rex. Again, this came out in a 2-pack with Ahsoka, and it is a pretty cool figure. It definitely looks nice next to that 501st Clone Trooper. I would be really tempted to get a second one if these were single-carded instead of the 2-pack, just because I think 2 501st Troopers would look really cool with this Captain Rex. He had the same problem with the unpainted little chin portion right there, which is very interesting, and he also did not have his ankles painted, which these both do for whatever reason. So again, small little changes, but nothing that makes them non-clone troopers. You know, they are the same mold, they're the same height, they're all going to look really nice together. I forgot, they never painted the back of Captain Rex's camo there, or pauldron rather, and they also didn't paint the gray stripe on his helmet, but that's something that they rectified with this one, thankfully, so I do appreciate that. I wish maybe we'd gotten a little bit more attention to detail on Rex, since he's a much more iconic character. However, it works. Again, these are like the truest form of kids' toys. These are not meant to be collector grade, so I give them a little bit more of a pass in that regard. We can also make room here for the Toy Box Ahsoka. I'm not terribly fond of this figure. It is a little bit too animated, but that's okay. Again, I did not buy the 2-pack for Ahsoka. I bought it for Rex, and I bought this 2-pack because it's Clone Troopers, and yeah, you know, they're cool. And just for reference, perhaps you'd be wondering if the Galaxy of Adventure Clone Trooper would scale with these. Unfortunately, it really does not. Let's see. Got to get that arm kind of cocked downward a little bit since that is spring-loaded. But yeah, the Galaxy of Adventures figure is definitely disproportionate in overall body size and shape, and also just in stylization. I feel like if I had to sum it up, the Toy Box figures are what like a child would draw a clone trooper as. That's like what I could see it being: the larger head, the oversized shoulders and feet. And while they do bring in elements of the animated Clone Wars series, again, it just feels like this is what a child might draw a clone trooper as. Whereas Galaxy of Adventures is much more of a stylized, realistic clone trooper. You can see it has the realistic knee pads, it has realistic elements elsewhere, incorporated of course with the Clone Wars art style, but it still is more realistic. And so this would be more of like the Clone Wars animated line that we got in the 3 3/4 inch scale. So I do like this line more, and I wish that they did more Clone Troopers in it. However, if it's true and they actually did cancel this line completely, then I would settle for Toy Box Clone Troopers any day. And then finally, for a cool little comparison, you can see them here next to their Black Series counterparts. I don't have the old mold version of the Shock Trooper, so the Shock Trooper Commander or Imperial Shock Trooper will have to do. And yeah, in a lineup like this, they look pretty solid. Like, obviously you're not going to display these next to each other necessarily, but I'm just saying they do have the markings that they should have. They might not be totally correct, like the knee pads and the eye on his chest, and of course that leg marking there, you can see. I don't know why they mixed that up, but yeah, for what these are, being aimed at a younger audience, like I said before, and also just being more animated, I think they do a pretty good job of being cool Clone Trooper action figures. The price point might be something that keeps people away from them, since you could get a vintage collection figure at that same price, or pay a little bit more and get a Black Series figure. But if you're looking for a fun animated figure in your collection that just is unique, and also, you know, you have that Captain Rex that you could go along with them, maybe get 2 of these packs, have that extra 501st, you know, they're fun for what they are, and I think that they do a good job of being what they are and sticking true to a very unique art style. That being said, that is where we're going to wrap up this video, so as always, there's a link down in the description. If you feel so inclined, you can follow that there to my Instagram, to my Facebook, to my other social media places. You can also find a link in there to Entertainment Earth if you want to order or pre-order any action figures. If you do it through the link, it helps out the channel just a tiny, tiny bit, and I do ever so appreciate that. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, noon, or night, depending on when you're watching this video, and as always, I will catch you all in the next video.